that's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine. Hello, everybody, and welcome back again. So today we have Assassin's Creed The Golden City by Jalaiah Johnson, which I believe is another lady. And boy, oh boy, did she cook. So this story would take place after Mirage, Assassin's Creed Mirage, but before Valhalla. And I gotta say, the other tie-in fiction was decent. And I'd say this is still decent. Like, the pros are nothing to write home about. It's nothing you'll be screaming from the rooftops. Themes are fine. But it was a much more emotional experience. And I thought it was handled a lot better, in my opinion, than the previous story. Again, not that the other story is bad by any means, but this was just a step up to me in terms of just everything that encapsulated Assassin's Creed, from some philosophical musings, from actually using historical figures in an important way, to the dialogue and emotional beats just between these different characters. I thought was handled exquisitely. That being said, Haytham in this book, because it follows Bassam and his apprentice, basically, Haytham, and Haytham is way more mature in this book than he seems to be in Valhalla. So a little bit of a contradiction, it feels like, but I don't mind it because it's done so well. So what's also cool about this story is it takes place in Constantinople. And the reason that's cool is, one, because Constantinople is cool. I want to go there someday. But also because for those veterans who are as old as me, Assassin's Creed Revelations also takes place in Constantinople. Quite 100 years down the line, mind you. Hundreds and hundreds of years. But still, very cool to see a familiar city from a game, but earlier in its time period. Right now, the current emperor, because again, Rome didn't completely die. I don't know if you're a history buff. I'm not particularly an expert by any means, but Rome did not exactly fall in a day. In fact, it kind of just transitioned to something else, the Byzantine Empire, and then of course you also have, the Catholic Church also came and did a bunch of stuff. But right now we have Emperor Basil I, who also has some interesting stuff. I will leave a link to a YouTube video about this man because it's quite fascinating. But Thyra, the Empress, wants protection for her son because Basil is convinced that his son is not his son, but is actually a bastard, and keeps trying to find ways to murder a child. So the plan basically becomes for Haytham to become a bodyguard for the royal family, but particularly Leo, and from there stuff ensues. Mainly, Haytham grows a very strong attachment to Leo, because he gave up in normal life and he chose to join the Hidden Ones, but he did also always have this drive to be a father, which he never got to have. And so Haytham gets a very strong feelings for this kid. And it kind of just encapsulates the whole story. It also mirrors Bassam very well. Bassam's a very enigmatic, mysterious figure, which you have your answers if you finished Valhalla. If you don't, then you don't know, and I don't want to spoil that for you, especially as this is a good prequel to Valhalla. But I will say, at the very least, that Bassam has his own dual nature. And he has a past. He has had children. He has had a family. And that plays a part with him and Haytham's relationship. That plays off each other very well, which I think is really interesting. And so I think all that's really great. And the relationship between Haytham, between Leo, between Haytham, between Bassam, I think it's just done expertly well. It is handled with grace and with nuance, and again, the prose may be nothing to write home about, but it's done really well and simply and succinctly, and I had a lot of fun, way more than I was expecting to have with this story. And so the other one, yeah, it was fine. But do I recommend this? Absolutely. Do you need it to enjoy Valhalla or Mirage? Not at all. But I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you do like those games and you don't check this out. Especially, not enough people talk about video game tie-in stuff on YouTube, so here I am to fill in the gap. A few people have talked about this book on here, but not many. I looked for it. There's not a lot of people that talked about it, so please, if you are a fan of this series and you haven't read it, I do recommend it. It was a lot of fun. It was way better than I was expecting it to be. And so I really don't have any more. I don't really have a spoiler section for this. There is a point where Hatham kind of teaches Leo some stealth things, and there is a little play on, is Justin, this other guard, a bad guy or a good guy? And you'll have to read the book to find out. I have one spoiler, just because I really hate Basil, but we'll get into that in spoilers. But beyond that, a fantastic Assassin's Creed novel. The thing about the Assassin's Creed novels, the only thing that irks me is, like, let's say you're not a video gamer and you only read the books and you want to know the story of the video games. You won't ever know the story of the video games if you read these books, even if you read the novelizations of video games, because those only novelize the past storyline. And this is also a problem within the fandom itself, and a problem with the fan base in general of Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed was always a philosophical, historical fiction, sci-fi. It was always those three things in tandem. The modern day was essential. Assassin's Creed 1 blends perfectly the historical elements with the modern day. They are thematically consistent with one another in terms of what's going on with Desmond's life and what's going on with Altair's. That would kind of dither as the series went on, but it was always meant to be that the core end goal was the modern day and getting that resolved. What happens nowadays is that the developers of these games don't want to end their franchise, right? So they consistently throw away their main plot of the modern day and just throw in something new. They've been on the right step by having Layla be the main protagonist of these newer games up until Shadows, where she just isn't there. It doesn't matter. I know why she's not there anymore, but it seems like they're just trying to bury that new storyline and start again. And I think I'd have more respect for this company if it was simply, okay, we're going to do a big modern day story and end that. And then Abstergo is no longer a bad guy. They're just a video game company or something. And from then on, you don't have to worry about a plot. You can just make your past storylines. But the issue is that half the fan base hates the modern day and only wants to deal with the past. So it kind of feels more like placating anything. I say that all to say that if you only read the Assassin's Creed novels, you're only getting a half of the story, because you're missing the entire context of the first civilization, the modern day. That stuff matters. That being said, if you just like Valhalla, and you really liked Basim, and you really liked Hatham, and you wanted more of that, this is the place to go. So I do wholeheartedly recommend Assassin's Creed The Golden City by Jalila Johnson. I don't know if you see this, but like when I'm reading Wheel of Time, I'm not exactly ecstatic and moving around like this because I'm not really having fun. But when I'm having fun, I'm a lot more energetic, and this one was, and I know fun is entirely subjective and all that. I'm just saying, it was a really fun time. It was really solid. I do recommend it. Maybe you won't feel the same, but just it is a tie-in fiction, so it's not going to be anything grand or spectacular. The only times it has happened is a few times now in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, like with the Star Wars 3 Episode 3 novelization, which seemingly beats out the actual film, or Darth Plagueis by James Luceno, or again Matthew Stover, Traitor, the 13th book and the 19th book epic New Jedi Order. But I think Traitor is better than anything that any Star Wars media has ever depicted, even more than your precious Andor. So I'm just meandering at this point. All that to say, I understand that time fiction isn't usually the greatest thing, and I'm not going to say this is the greatest thing either, but if you are a fan of the base material, I think you'll get a lot out of this story. So if you haven't checked it out, please do so. I have only one spoiler, so if you don't want it, get out of here. So, well, two spoilers. So I'll do the second one. No, okay. have you finished Valhalla? If you haven't, just go and read the book and come back. Okay? Alright. Okay? You all know that Basim is Loki. Okay? We don't need to go into that. So, you know, his whole motivation against Ivor with his sons in that game really emboldens him and strengthens his relationship with Hatham, and I really love that connection. But also, um, as I said with Justin, he's seemingly like this guy that hates Leo for almost the entire story until we realize that he's been pretending to hate this kid for the kid's own safety, because he had taught Leo how to do archery, and Leo wanted to make his dad proud, so he went to his dad to show him that he could, shoot a bow. And in response to that, Basil, in his anger and in his believing that that's not his son, decided his best course of action was to instead of saying like "good job," he takes Leo's arm and broke it. So I hate this guy. And I mean, obviously, this historical fiction, so we don't know what this guy is actually. Well, we have what we know of him, but we don't know him personally. But in terms of who he is in this story, rather despised him. And of course, the Order of Ancients is in here. I didn't really talk about them in non-spoiler, but yes, they're around. They're doing things, but it doesn't. That's not really the essential part, though. There is a bit of mystery there that is also fun. But the core of it is fatherhood. It seems like, and so overall, like I said, recommend it, recommend it, recommend it. And until next time, Recorreci de pace. Probably butchered that, but that's okay. Till next time.